Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to the first meeting of the Strategic Planning and Economic Development Committee of the Whole, number 1. In the absence of Councillor Flaherty, I will be chairing this evening. So we will, today in Chambers, we have Jeff Byrne, Economic Development Officer, and of course Amy and our support staff. So can we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Lucasy seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Unanimous. Great. We have no minutes as this is the first meeting. Do we have any declarations of interest? None. We don't have any delegations today or any deferred business. So new business, I'd like to invite Jeff Byrne, our Economic Development Officer, to provide us with a strategic plan progress report. And we're really happy to have you here, Jeff.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. So Jeff and I are working tag team with this committee, Deputy Mayor. And so if that's okay, I'll take the lead on the progress report.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so in your package today, you have a progress report of the city's strategic plan. So with this cow, this is a cow for economic development as well as strategic planning. And this is we've put together a progress report of the city's strategic plan, a midway report, a mid-year report to show council the progress that's been made and what still needs to be done. So just an overview about some strategic planning. Strategic planning basically determines exactly where the organization is going over the next few years and how it's going to get there. Our strategic plan is a coordinated and systematic way to develop course and direction for the organization. It incorporates council's vision, guiding our future possibilities, and provides the city with an opportunity to more clearly define the business of the municipal corporation and clarify its strategic intent, as well as establish priorities for municipal investment. The strategic plan provides council and staff with a common focus, priorities, and desired outcomes. It requires us to recognize and balance the difference between our wants and needs and to be visionary and long-term thinkers. So the city had developed a strategic plan that looks like this in 2017, and it was meant to serve Iqaluit from 2017 to 2022. Then council asked for an update. So last year, a consultant was engaged to help guide the city through a strategic planning update exercise. The consultants met with council, and council had asked that the former council had asked that emphasis be placed on the implementation phase, so assisting the staff through workshops with coming up with actions and so on, and so that the strategic plan could be effectively implemented. And so workshops were done around that kind of theme, and an update was done. That was provided to council at the council orientation, and from there we've put together our kind of matrix of all of the strategic priorities and actions and so on, and then identified the measurement and some outcomes, as well as things that still need to happen. So the update was done last year, and it's a 5-year plan. So I will just quickly go over wanted to just kind of review the vision for council, just to ensure everybody's on the same page. So the vision is that Iqaluit will be an inspirational Arctic leader, grounded in the culture of our people, where knowledge and investment are encouraged, and families grow strong and healthy. And then following up with a mission is to provide our citizens, to provide services to our citizens that promote a healthy, safe, economically vibrant, and culturally rich city. And so from there, there are 5 strategic priorities that were agreed on. The first is to enhance good governance. The second is to build sustainable infrastructure. The third is become an employer of choice. The fourth is to serve our residents with excellence. And the fifth is to become an Arctic leader in sustainable economic development. And so under each of those 5 categories, we have the objectives. And today I'll start with in the report, your first page, I think it's probably blue, enhance good governance. So we'll go through some of those, and then if there's questions, we'll take questions after each of the strategic priorities reports. And you can feel free to ask questions about how things are being done or additional progress items. So the first one for under objectives is to govern in a transparent, inclusive, and a trustworthy, inclusive, and transparent way. So this involves holding biweekly meetings with departments, directors, and producing minutes with actions. So these are ongoing, being done. The meetings were somewhat altered during COVID to make room for the COVID task force, and all of those staff people were on that committee. But those are resuming again now. The next is to create a manual describing all administrative procedures and processes for employees and council. So we have had 3 policies that have been completed, and there are additional policies being worked on now in this time frame. And again, this time frame is from January to June 30th. Organize a workshop on good governance and ethics to inform, stimulate discussion, and build trust between council and management. I know something that this is something that this council felt was really important. We started off with an orientation when this council was new, and that has been discussed. And given COVID restrictions, we haven't brought in somebody to facilitate that workshop, but we will be developing an RFP to hopefully allow that to happen. And now that some of the measures have been relaxed somewhat, we may be able to do that in the near future. And I think there was also a council motion on there to that effect. And then moving to fiscal sustainability, this is achieve a balanced budget and funds, align the budget with short and long-term strategic priorities. And so this has been achieved. So this past year was the first year that all of the city's funds were not in deficit and we're in a positive position. So that's a really, really big accomplishment. So I wanted to mention that, and that's been achieved. Develop a 5-year capital investment plan. So this has been deferred. We're missing some staff positions in finance, but this is tied to the capital plan, which was completed last year. So the city does have a 5-year capital infrastructure plan, and that was approved by this council at the last budget session. Develop guidelines and actions for the city's fiscal sustainability team and working groups, and produce quarterly reports. So some work has been done on that. It's in progress. And it was on hold waiting for hiring of our Director of Corporate Services. But while we're waiting, we do have work underway, such as revenue and collections policies and things like that. So there is actually some work being done there. Implement a payment and collection strategy. So this is 70% done. And we received some additional information today that will help us move that forward. Communicate in a proactive manner. The first item was a communication plan. And so we've made some good progress in the communications division as we hired a communication and customer service manager who's taking the lead on all of the communications items. And the plan is 60% complete. We have an additional plan that was that's nearly complete, just waiting on final draft for emergency and crisis response. as well that was developed during the COVID, as a result of the COVID task force. We've also increased radio interviews with counselors, and there's a lot of additional public service announcements and information on the website. Create a new position for community communication liaison. We've had some challenges with that. It's been posted a number of times. The job description was completed. It's been posted, but screening is underway, and we do have a couple of candidates that are being evaluated right now. Social media strategy and policy. So this was a collaborative effort, and this is in draft at the 80% mark. And we'll be bringing that to council when it's complete. Are there any questions in under the good governance, enhanced good governance strategic priority? Councillor Kumalik, should get my headset out.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm happy that the community communication liaison officer is in progress. And you said there's couple good candidates. Are we going to have someone in place in like a couple weeks or so?
It's my hope that we will. I don't know because they're still in the process. So if the interviews and go well and the candidates accept, or the candidate accepts, then that will happen. If not, it would have to be posted again. Okay, so the second strategic priority, build sustainable infrastructure. The first objective is to ensure our infrastructure meets the functional needs of the community. So the first is to install a computer-aided maintenance management system to support the asset management plan. So there is a capital project for this. An RFP has been issued for the asset management project. And HR is in the process of developing a job description for the asset planning coordinator, as this is an item that can be funded under the gas tax funding, this position. So we're working towards that. So we'll have the support from the consultant to develop the work that needs to be done with the database, as well as the government of Nunavut has the system implemented, and we are able to work with some of their resources as well regarding the asset management system. The second is through this, ensure that the water treatment plant and booster stations are in optimal operating condition and that spare parts and expertise are available. So we've actually done some really good work with what's called our supervisory control and data acquisition, or SCADA system. So this has been installed. And final electrical work and grounding are underway to support the system. That was part of the capital plan that the council approved. So that work is underway, and the SCADA system is in operation. The staff are using it. They have iPads that they can, something like an iPad or tablet that they can take home to monitor the city's water systems. And there are sensors throughout the system now. It's computerized, so it's much easier for the maintenance and troubleshooting, as well as for energy efficiency. The next is to complete the drainage master plan, and so this has been completed. So we have the plan in hand, and the next step would be to ensure we have funds to actually implement the plan and to select the priorities on which areas need the most work and to get that done. So we're working towards that for the 2021 budget. Implement the drinking water management plan. So that plan is complete. That was a big project, and the actual plan is complete, and the implementation is underway. Improve safety and accessibility requirements into planning, so infrastructure and facilities. And so while we say this is deferred, so planning. The planning department had other priorities and haven't been able to, work towards that yet in terms of actually incorporating it into their documents. But we have made sure that safety and accessibility are definitely components that are included into our facilities planning, such as our new city hall and the renovation of the city hall. The next objective is to plan our future infrastructure, taking into account population growth, climate change, and environmental considerations, existing infrastructure, financial, and HR realities. So the first is to establish a 5-year capital plan based on an integrated approach involving planning, financing, engineering, operations to effectively manage existing assets and plan for future projects. The vision should incorporate water and wastewater, waste, renewable, affordable, and efficient energy and facilities. And the facilities that are listed include a city hall, fire hall, new central warehouse. And there's a note there about the 5-year capital plan. So this was 100% complete. In addition, just another note is that the Municipal Enforcement Department did create an equipment replacement plan. And some of these other items are included in the city's capital planning process. And we have a note also from the Planning and Development regarding an item they're working on, which is a West 40 Airport land transfer. So review of historic information has been completed, and the staff have met with various government agencies to work towards the transfer. So there's quite large parcels of land out in the West 40 that are occupied with airport land leases, and that's being we're working on transferring that over to the city. However, the city does not accept land that's contaminated, so we require environmental assessments. So I just wanted to let you know that that's close to being completed, and we're just waiting for some final documentation. Design, develop and design lot subdivision plan for the next 5 years, taking into consideration future infrastructure. So some of this work has been done, and the general plan and zoning bylaw housekeeping and consolidation bylaw is going to the planning and development COW, the upcoming COW, as well as the land administration bylaw, which is expected to be brought to COW very shortly. There are bylaws and sketches for the Road to Nowhere A and B subdivision that have been completed, and that was meant to be the next subdivision, but we would like to have a discussion with council on looking at expanding to the Federal Road area to take advantage of the servicing there with the new Inuit-owned parcel there. Also, an important note is that the long-term water supply is required prior to the development of a new subdivision. The general plan states that the development in the city without a long-term water supply cannot exceed 8,300, the population of 8,300. However, we have introduced a stopgap measure with our pumping project, and that has allowed for us to continue with some development while working with conservation measures, as well as some of the really good work that we're doing to repair the water infrastructure, and that's reduced usage quite a bit so far. Okay. Continue to implement the solid waste management plan. So that's being done now, and some current work that's happening is the design for that new facility and project is 90% done, and there will be a presentation to the Public Works and Engineering Committee on the 1st of September on that plan, and consultants are preparing that. Also, West 40 improvements are underway, and the fire training ground relocation, and that's all part of the landfill projects or the waste management projects. Establish a short-term supplementary water supply plan. So we're considering this 80% done this year. So this is the Apex pumping project, and we have a water license for this pumping project until 2026. Develop a long-term supplementary water source. And so this is, I'm saying 10% done, but some good work has been done so far. So a draft pre-feasibility study for the long-term storage options has been received. It's a very detailed report and very thorough, and that information will be presented to you at the upcoming Public Works and Engineering COW as well, for your review. The next is to build resiliency into city planning to account for climate change, disasters, risk mitigation, and response and service interruptions. The first was to revise the general plan to include provisions on climate change and develop resiliency plans for changing permafrost conditions, natural and man-made hazards, and plan infrastructure accordingly. So while I have listed this as deferred, there is some updates that we have done with this. It just doesn't relate quite specifically to that action item, but it things like the cemetery project is a good example of taking into account work that's being done to adapt to climate change. And develop specific intervention plans in the emergency management plan for all hazards, including natural disasters, technological incidents, and human-caused incidents. So this has been deferred because the fire department master plan is the first step, and we do have an RFP completed that was done earlier in the year, but we deferred the consulting portion of this and actually putting it out publicly because of COVID and having to bring somebody into quarantine for 2 weeks in advance of coming here. And we really felt that for a fire department master plan that the consultant should come here. So we're just looking at options there, but yeah. Are there any questions on the build sustainable infrastructure section?
Councillor Shepherd, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know work is being done on the transportation master plan, and I thought I'd like to see that as a line item on this section right here. Can you provide any update on the progress of that at this point in time?
I think we have that further on. In maybe the last page.
Didn't have this in our package earlier, so this is the first time we're seeing this document.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware.
Councillor Natta.
Ila takopi katur piyini kroko gembata temeli naktuma tenda kilokto tawra choktu yomayo kalagiyane ila utine sakai piyakta kuruga paknau tikila kuruatio kijane shognato hamman shognato ataina Sema kuna gutaina atainang tamane kadwe kajenel amro pikuring wa kiloti tala kalmelingina ang magal ataw siya nakta kwasagat libo tana kitloktoru igara limato sa mayura kasi ang mayurang matailan taman suonato anamatlingi kurang mga ipilo. Tana ila atana turune sigunitini surukana namal karwit piyokpalenayan kajene lainiyang tana ki kanune yagarokpa piyokaya akuyi yutukulo tukusina singa tema tuyong mego dunabot kaya kutuyong magkutata kadagi kurani tana inakam amba inuit tawla nakil kalukya.
Thank you for the question. I believe you may be referring to the Butler building next to the Capitol Suites. Okay. Yes. So that building, I think the contamination is asbestos, which is not hazardous to people on the outside of the building. It would be hazardous if somebody was inside disturbing the asbestos. And so that's one issue on that site. Another issue on that site is the actual ground that was found to have contaminants. There was a report done a number of years ago that made some recommendations about encapsulating the removing the building and treating the asbestos and so on. That can be done in town somewhat. And then it's kind of sealing off the area with, say, paving it so that the contaminants don't, come out into the air or travel through the soil as well. There's some work that would have to be done there. So the city doesn't have a specific plan right now in the disposal of that. It does need to work on disposing that, so I agree with you.
Thank you, Councillor Nuttall and Amy. Mayor Bell?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brewster. I'm just wondering if we should focus to fix that by next summer when we're already going to be doing some paving. It would be a good time to have that completed by.
Councillor Akumelik?
Thank you. I think the previous councils tried to deal with that before, but it was going to become quite costly and very technical too. But if I think the mayor's suggesting maybe we should deal with it next year or something like that. But it's going to cost quite a bit, I think, and very technical.
Thank you, Councillor Akumelik. Amy, would you like to continue?
Thank you. Okay, the next one is become an employer of choice. So the first was to attract and retain qualified employees to work for the city. And one recommendation was to acquire some external assistance in the short term to meet the needs of the Human Resources Department to help with staffing. So we do have one short-term contract for hiring assistance right now for a senior position. Other than that, we've also brought on a human resource specialist who is working through hiring a number of positions, and we're making some progress there. I don't have stats with me now, but HR will be able to come to you another day with statistics. Proceed to benchmark employee benefits and adjust incentives to be competitive. And so external funding for this was approved. So this was in the city's capital budget, but additional funding was needed. And we were able to secure funding from the federal government, from CERNA. And we have gone ahead and hired the consultant for this project, and it is underway. And they have done interviews with management and staff and some staff, and are working through their process. So we'll have that completed. We're expecting to have that complete by the end of the year. And so that's called a classification and compensation study. The next is to participate in various career fair events and promote our employer brand through advertising. And so the indicator here was to attend job fairs and events. So before COVID in January, there was a student career fair, and there were over 300 people who attended that career fair, and we had a prominent place at that career fair, and we were able to reach out to many potential applicants. And the city is also now a member of the Nunavut Career Development Community. And also we've advertised employment opportunities in some of the in some different areas like the Up Here magazine, and also industry specific websites, as well as through our regular channels like the city webpage, and we can now share those onto social media, and they are picked up by other job sites like Indeed and so on. Showcase the good work of city employees through recognition and awards. And this is ongoing. We have an annual recognition awards program now that we've done for the last 2 years. And Mirabel was part of that last year as well. And the awards are called the Employee Excellence Awards. We also have long-term service awards at the City of Iqaluit. We've also, there were also some additional recommendations for additional awards in our Inuit employment plan that was recently, it's very close to being completed, and then we'll be bringing that to council as well. Adapt to the changing work environment, cultural and economic realities by offering flexible work schedules. So that was something that came out of an original workshop when staffing levels were quite low. Since then, they are improving. But we were able to offer the flexible work schedules during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we really kept things running here during that time. And city services, for the most part, were not interrupted, especially the essential services. We made that a priority during a lot of the COVID kind of shutdown time. Truck services and water, sewer, garbage, and so on, and emergency medical services were running kind of full tilt. So just thought I'd mention that. The city is reflective of the society that it serves, so proportional representation and affirmative action. So this would be the implementation of the Inuit Employment Plan. And so that's something that we're just kind of finalizing the details of that, and that'll be brought to council shortly. And just a note, municipal enforcement created a department training plan for Inuit trainee positions. So that's something that's already underway. And then to complete the Inuit Employment Plan, which I've mentioned, it says actual Inuit Employment Program. The reason I wrote 50% is because the plan is done, but now the implementation comes next for the program part. Strengthen employee engagement. So this is the first one is to develop internal communications. So this was internal communications have increased, and especially related to COVID-19, there were quite a few. There was regular information coming from human resources out to staff during that time. Implement employee survey evaluation and document feedback. This has been deferred. Organize team building activities for employees. So there was a Valentine's Day party for employees and families, and treats for employees. COVID interruption happened, but we are planning for the annual staff barbecue on the 7th of September. And the social committee is working on that. Are there any questions on that section?
Councillor Kumalik.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't know if my question is a right question, but I want to know why we don't have Director of Public Works. Why don't we have Director of Corporate? And do we have a fire chief or inspector?
Thank you. Yep. So we do have a fire chief. So Jeff Spriggs is the Director of Emergency Services and Fire Chief. And the Director of Corporate Services position is underway right now. We have a firm assisting us with that position. And there are interviews taking place in the next couple of weeks for the Director of Public Works.
Councillor Lucasy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to throw out something out there. We want to be like attractive employer. I'm just wondering if it would be possible for the city to do like Christmas bonuses, like the GM does. Like every 3 years we get a bonus and then 5 years onward. Would that be a possibility to look into for us to give bonuses to the city of employees for working like 5 years, 6 years, and so on? That's it.
Thank you. Good ideas. So as part of the compensation review, they're looking at all different kinds of incentives and as well as, regular compensation, but also additional compensation. So we can bring that up for sure.
Councillor Kumalik.
Maybe the inspector part I didn't catch. And another thing, for September 7 barbecue for the staff, I think we were trying to organize before COVID that Leonie could get an award or something for her long service with the city. She never got a good party or anything, so I think it'd be great if we can provide her something at that time.
Yes, so we suggested that to the social committee, and they thought they would like to have a separate party so we can have two parties. One specifically to celebrate the long-term service, and then also a barbecue. So that planning is underway as well. Do you mean a building inspector? Okay, so quite a number of years ago, the city did have a building inspector, and since then, the government of Nunavut has taken over that role. So they have a full buildings division now, and they take care of all building inspections
For the whole Nunavut or just for Iqaluit?
for all of Nunavut.
Thank you, Amy. I just want to take a moment to thank you and our entire team at the city for the excellent adaptation that took place during the onset of COVID. I think that that is something that was done really well. There was ongoing communication from the executive team to ensure that people knew what to expect, and I just wanted to recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so next we have, just a second. Okay, two more. Okay, become an Arctic leader in sustainable development. Ensure cultural sensitivity and understanding across the organization. Put in place cultural orientation and training for staff. So this was deferred. HR is looking at a training program for this. We were moving towards this, and then the delays happened for the in-person training. So in-person training was very much desirable for this rather than an online training. So we may have to kind of shift to online to start with, and then do an in-person training later. So next is ensure services are reliable and meet the needs of our residents. Continue to develop online service tools and functions to improve timely service, including online permits, service requests, development application reviews, and ensure promotion to residents. So we've expanded online bookings for recreation programs like ice time, facility rentals, camps, and so on. We're adding proper receipting to business license portal rather than having to do manual. We're implementing vendor EMTs, burn permits, and public works permits. Those are underway. Expand community engagement programs through regular online surveys and ensure results are communicated to the department concerned and adjustments to services are implemented. This has been deferred. Ensure adequate staffing levels and job knowledge. So this would include training to deliver the services. So this is ongoing. We have had increases in online training. I don't have the stats available right now, but there has been quite a bit of online training that has taken place. As well, there was a pandemic certificate that all staff were required to take during COVID as well. So more and more people are working, moving towards some online training. It's quite accessible. Ensure continuous improvement of customer services across the organization through the setting of standards, performance reviews, and knowledge sharing. So we did do some some surveys for customer surveys with the winter break camp, swim lesson survey, and so on. In talking about performance reviews, we do have a new, I forgot to add it on here, but there is a new package for new forms and a new kind of process and package for performance reviews within the organization. And also we are interested in working towards doing a survey to customers on the delivery of water, sewer, and garbage services, customer surveys. Next is that the city will develop a bylaw to require Inuktitut signage. So that's been deferred, but that is part of the plan. The city will develop a recreation master plan, so that's more than 85% complete. The next is to improve relationships with our residents and partners by building trust and confidence. So to create a customer relationship management plan, including customer service standards and guidelines. Excuse me, this has been deferred, but it also is being incorporated into our plans hopefully for a new website. And we are utilizing the web form complaints and compliments, so people can click onto that on the website, and then they can click on the area of their concern, and they can submit their complaint there, and then we have our communications customer service manager now monitoring that. Continue to expand customer service capacity to all staff, process and training, ensure employees are trained for in-house delivery. So we were able to hire communications and customer service managers, so those things are now underway. And then develop public awareness material to educate residents about water, sewer, and other public works services. So we've standardized some public service announcements for water interruptions. We've increased messaging for service continuity. And there's also some graphics and things that have been developed to help brand some of those messages. Are there any questions?
Councillor Lucasy?
Thanks, Mayor, Deputy Mayor. It's not a question, but just a suggestion about the requirement for the Inuktitut signage. If maybe I was working for Culture and Heritage for a year and a half or so, if maybe we could reach out to Wendy Benz, the Director of Corp, with CH. There's a grant for businesses and private sectors to apply for up to $5,000 to help them translate their, business logo or their business information. Also, I see it's priority number 200. We could change that to 1 because it's very important for us to have our Inuktitut business or our businesses in town show their Inuktitut name. Like, that's very important to me. But if the city could kindly consult with Wendy, maybe that she could give you guys information on the brochure that they have. It's a grant that they give out. It's a one-time payment. They don't need to pay it back, just to help them get translation done for their business. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Lucasy. Councillor Komulik?
Thank you. Just a comment, I think. A few years ago, we were doing really well with the public awareness on materials and to educate residents. And we included cardboard, and that took off very well. Businesses and duplexes started building their own little shed for cardboard, but now that has been gone for a while. And my neighbor and I just yesterday threw out a whole bunch of cardboard, and we were not really sure what to do with it. But I'm glad the public works guys picked it up yesterday. So I think things like that we need to do more, because some people are asking about what are we doing with cardboard now.
Thank you, Councillor Komulik. I would just like to add that you mentioned that the web form allows for people to submit complaints. I just want to clarify that that form also allows citizens to submit compliments to the city. So, compliments, complaints, questions?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amy. Go ahead, Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brewster. On that point, I would like to have that changed a tiny bit to allow anonymous complaints. So it requires a phone number and email, but I would like to see it be able to do anonymous complaints too. So not really change, just not required to put those things in.
Thank you, Mayor Bell. You can continue, Amy.
Okay, so we're on the last strategic priority. So this has become an Arctic leader in sustainable development. Iqaluit is recognized as the economic and cultural capital of Nunavut. Build and maintain partnerships and collaborate with the private sector, educational institutions, Inuit organizations, and other levels of government. So we submitted 3 different funding proposals with Canor. We've worked with other organizations in the community for community cleanup. We partnered with QIA for the waterways cleanup, as well as additional organizations were on board after once that started, which was very positive. Working with the GN departments and Inuit organizations to develop guidelines pertaining to permitted land use and addressing unsightly areas. Develop a marketing strategy that identifies our strengths, target markets, and positioning. And for this, we haven't got to this one yet, and we've got a note here to identify some funding opportunities. Plan future infrastructure with partners to facilitate the development of new economic activities. Some examples were a boat landing stage and tourism facilities, and Inuit-owned land hotel and adjacent municipal land is one example of planning future infrastructure with the partners. The GN required, there's some requirements here that we're waiting on that planning noted. The development of the Inuit-owned land roadway is another example, as well as the water sewer infrastructure that we partnered with QBDC on. Explore other opportunities, including the subdivision, infrastructure, and solid waste management. Promote culture through festivals and events to link cultural diversities. So we supported and helped with, we already mentioned this, 2 cleanup operations, and we also have a mask making project underway to promote some cultural kind of items. Due to COVID, unfortunately, Tuna Time was canceled and Alley Night as well. And we're looking at alternate delivery options for those things for the future and hoping for the best. We could probably, we didn't mention that, but we should probably talk about here, mention the wellness funding. That's an important part of supporting this strategic objective. And the city has been doing very well with supporting the various activities and organizations in town through the wellness program. The next is ease of doing business in Iqaluit. Update the community economic development actions with council. So this is our first SPED COW, and we hope to continue with meetings bi-monthly. So the COVID put a halt to some of this work and some of the meetings and so on. But the idea is to meet with this group regularly to help form some of those plans and to ensure the priorities are set in advance of the 2021 budget. Produce a quarterly economic report that measures and reports economic development activities, including information on licenses and an economic outlook. So we're researching formats with indicators for that one right now. Enforce business licensing. So the EDO actively monitors local businesses, new businesses, and encourages applications for business licenses in the city. And for our measurement there, we have, at the time of writing, we had 393 businesses registered in the city's business license system. Create an applicant's guide to facilitate the sole proprietorship of taxi licenses. So this is kind of like a guidebook or pamphlet to make it easier to obtain taxi licenses and permits. Sometimes that process seemed a bit arduous with a lot of steps. So we're in the information gathering stage, and that is moving along. Promote and support the development and expansion of local business through incentives and business coaching. Our EDO worked really hard to provide COVID-19 industry related information to local businesses, and also we've assisted businesses with trying to obtain money to keep their doors open, and helping them with looking into options for relief and recovery funding. So we've done a fair bit of that, and Jeff's done a really good job in supporting the businesses and helping them connect them to funding where possible. The Economic Development Officer should become the lead for city-led business development activities and business-related requests. This is ongoing, and the EDO is actively working with new businesses and fields business-related questions and requests that kind of lead to additional business activities in the city. Incorporate sustainable practices and economic development to reduce impact on environment and city infrastructure. Assess strategic and sustainable development activities and identify which ones to support. The City of Iqaluit has agreements with QEC for the district heating, for the aquatic center, water treatment plant, water stations, and so on. And that's one thing that we've done there. We're looking for additional, I think, through the priorities for the economic development projects. We'd like to see some more of that there. Develop public transportation options. So this is in respect to the transportation master plan. So it's the development of the transportation master plan. So this is underway right now. And that concludes the report, unless there are questions about that section, of course.
Go ahead, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really like this report. I appreciate all the work that went into it, and I really look forward to seeing them on a regular basis going forward. It's imperative we get a copy of this before these meetings. With this not in our package tonight, nobody around this table was able to prepare for a fulsome conversation. Being read a report for 51 minutes is not the most valuable use of our time. If we had time to prepare, we could have generated questions beforehand and come to this a little bit better prepared than we were tonight. So I'd like to see this in advance in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I think it was meant to be in the packages, so I'm not sure what happened there, but it will definitely be in your packages next time.
Councillor Nuttall.
Apekulo with Yatamili on their Kotunga, Tema, Gumanga, Solo, Aikakatama, on Tanu Paman, or a magazine. Tanari, the Konixima, the Konixima rock takwa, or a maximum to it. Solo, Kasha Yakalaka, at rain and Makasha, the Kuyana Ratum. Tema Titakanning. Man, no Jack, Pitulone, Aikakatama, Paman, Tana, Akoyo. Woman don't look at Tana Piguya. Aikakatama, the Giroso, Tamakuna, Katamila, Shunane, or a man after Tidney. Ila, Takoyak sitting, one Takunata Tidney, one a lot. They made only Pina, Kurama. I don't care. One don't look at. I could meet the town to sugar citrin.
Thank you, Councillor Nuttall. And thank you, Amy, for the update. This is a really important tool to guide the day-to-day work of our team. And it's really clear that we're going in a good direction and a good indication of what we're doing right and perhaps what some of our barriers are. So thank you for taking the time to provide this update. Yeah, we can move on to 5B. Cannabis license review update, a verbal report from Jeff Byrne, our economic development officer. You're up, Jeff.
Good evening, councillors, and thank you for having me here today. Just going to do a verbal update on the cannabis application that the City of Iqaluit has received from the government of Nunavut. We had received this application. You will have a copy of the application that was received in front of you via paper.
Oh, just the letter?
That's as much as we get for the actual application from the government of Nunavut, which kind of just outlines who is looking to run the business, the location in which they will be operating out of, and the hours of operation that were set by the business themselves. I had created an internal task force or an internal group, working group of city staff that included myself, Lisa, our communications manager, Jennifer Jarvis, our city planner, Mark Broderick, our director of planning, and Matthew Normand, one of our HR specialists, to review the applications that come in for cannabis licensing, in which then I would bring forth to either this committee or council, depending on the time. Each application, this being the first one under the Act, we're provided 60 days to act and provide consultation to the government of Nunavut. Every preceding application after this one, we have a 30-day timeline to provide consultation. Our internal findings for the application at hand was that the application is currently zoned under a district commercial zone B2, which allows for the operation of a retail store where the location currently is, and that's 1501 Federal Road. The Nuna Cannabis Store Incorporated has a valid business license with the City of Iqaluit, as this was a requirement before they were able to complete their application with the government of Nunavut for the cannabis license itself. Again, because of the zoning location as a district zone B2, there were no issues with the zoning location at all. However, comments from the planning department and the city planner in specific had mentioned that we may have to ask for a development permit for a change of intensity use on the building, as traffic would be higher under the current needs with this store. But there was a recommendation of our internal group as well to limit the hours of operation to coincide with that of the beer and wine store. There's no requirement under the Act to have it very specific, and it's very much open for interpretation. Not sure if we should be at the discretion of limiting business hours for a privately owned business in the community, but I would love to hear feedback from this group regarding that. And then one last point for this as well. Going forward, how would the committee like to see applications presented? Again, this being the first one, and knowing that after this one we have a 30-day time period to respond. Would you like it brought forth to a COW or a special meeting? Would you like it presented at council? Would you like to form a group with administrative staff and myself to review applications as they come in? I'm very much open for suggestions, and I would like to help with this as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Jeff? Go ahead, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I spent some considerable amount of time yesterday and this evening before I came reading the Government of Nunavut's regulations and the Cannabis Act. I'm very pleased with the document they've prepared when it comes to how they're regulating retail operations. It's very thorough. They've done a lot of the work that I expected we'd have to do. I'm quite comfortable with what they've come up with. I have 3 issues, 2 of which you alluded to already. I'm concerned with the parking on that site. If this was to be a new development right now, would there be adequate parking there for the expected traffic? You look at the beer and wine store right now, that's considerably inadequate parking. We keep coming back to this as an issue over and over again with different developments. So I definitely have concern with the traffic flow there. I don't want to limit the hours, but 10 o'clock seems late in a way. At the same time, I think the beer and wine store hours are a little bit too restrictive. So maybe there's a middle ground there. Whether or not we should legislate that, I don't know. Ultimately, not up to me. And the third is kind of a bigger picture. As a council, do we want to do what other governments have done and limit the number of stores in town? Do we want to set a cap on how many that we can have here, or are we just going to, on a case-by-case basis, review every application? If we have 6 new applicants next week, will we approve a total of 7 cannabis stores in the Iqaluit? There's a bigger conversation here that we've never taken up that I think needs to happen on the regulation of this.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I wholeheartedly agree. From one factor, I feel that we should not be inhibiting or a private business in the community, and that if the private business is sustainable and we can have 8 stores, then there should be that. However, I do agree that there should, in some way or form, we should have some parameters to say, well, enough is enough. We have potentially 15 stores, and that's almost too many for a community of our size. So I would very much love to have that conversation with this group. If we want to limit the amount of stores available in Iqaluit, we can definitely bring forth those recommendations to the government of Nunavut, along with any other recommendations we would like. In terms of hours of operation, I feel the same way. 7 days a week, 12 hours a day seems like a long time. However, comparing it to other jurisdictions in Canada, I've noticed that stores were open 7 days a week, roughly with a similar time frame. So again, I'm just going based off of what data is already out there.
Thank you, Jeff. Does Councillor Akumalek go ahead?
Thank you. This is the first shot, and it's not going to be perfect. I say we ride with it for a bit, see how it goes, and complaints and recommendations will probably come forth after. But my question is, what does the government of Nunavut want from us?
Thank you, Councillor Kumlik. So the government of Nunavut is looking for a consultation from the city of Iqaluit. So that being said, they would like our opinions on the matter, what we would like to see within our own community when it comes to cannabis and cannabis regulations and stores. And they've left it as vague as that. So they want as much information as we're willing to provide them. The main topics that they express our interest in are, of course, the zoning of locations and hours of operation, as well as the amount of stores, if that is the case.
Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead, Councillor Akumalek.
I guess they're looking for a letter of support or a motion, or I don't know.
Not so much a letter of support. Letter of recommendation would probably fit better. The findings that I have from today, I'm hoping that we could bring forth, to the next council meeting, or I believe we have a special council meeting for it. And then what I would do is prepare a report on behalf of council for the government of Nunavut with what we would like to see, not only in this application, but for applications going forward as well. And I'd like to, I missed one part of Councillor Shepherd's comment there about parking at the current location. Again, this was brought up with the planning department, and we feel that if they do proceed, they will need to put forth a development permit for the change of intensity. I don't know how that would work based on their current location, because there is not a lot of a lot of parking space there. However, I think that would be up to the developer or the building owner to accommodate based on the size of store and the square footage of the store.
Thank you, Jeff. If there are no more questions, one more from Councillor Shepherd.
Possibly a few.
Oh,
thanks. Maybe it's just this mindset, like an old mindset since before legalization, but once cannabis was legalized, is it automatically treated within all of our bylaws as any other retail product? So there's no, I know a lot of municipalities have created special regulations and incorporated into their bylaws, development bylaws, business licensing bylaws, and everything else. We haven't done any of that work. So I'm just wondering how this is being treated at this point in time. Is it just like any other retail location, or do we need to create something specific?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Shepherd. As of now, it is being treated as if it's a retail location. The government of Nunavut sets forth that it is a retail location. Therefore, currently we have it under our planning bylaw as a retail location. We can, however, again, as you mentioned, for other bylaws like our business licensing bylaw, we are, if we want as a council, or sorry, you guys as a council, with the administration, look to create a new bylaw for the city on how we would like to see certain things with the cannabis in our community. There are a lot of other jurisdictions that also have their own municipal regulations and bylaws around cannabis. Again, that's what I come to you guys for today, is to see, is that something we want to see, or that you want to see as council, and if so, we could go through the steps and make that happen.
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor Bell has a comment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brewster. On the time, I'm good with the time. I like that time. It's fine with me, and limiting time is would be kind of strange anyways, but mostly I just want to make sure that we don't see cannabis stores in front of schools. So anywhere within, like, I don't know, 500 feet of a school grounds shouldn't be a cannabis store. That's my only real thought process on the situation.
Thank you, Mayor Bell. Councillor Stevenson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm also not in favor of limiting their hours. I think that's fine. It actually will probably help with the parking too, a little bit, as compared to the beer and wine store anyway, where the condensed hours make for condensed timing. I know that Councillor Shepherd, you said we hadn't done any work in preparing, but we had done the smoking bylaw, which we changed. And I thought that the smoking bylaw also covered, I'm just trying to pull it up here, but I didn't get it in time for, you guys didn't talk long enough. But I thought it covered distance from schools as well, not just for smoking, but also for stores. Did it not? Or stores get mentioned in there? Maybe not. Maybe just it was smoking. But anyway, that was one bylaw that we did work on in preparation for this.
Amy, go ahead.
Yes, so the bylaw that you're referring to is I think it's called something like the smoking, cannabis, and vaping bylaw, something like that. And that just references the actual smoking or the use of, does not take into account, a store or location. I think there was a bit of discussion around it at the time, but the actual bylaw is about the Smoking Act itself, and that also there's restrictions for playgrounds, like recreation facilities and schools, so distance, smoking within certain distances from those areas. Some municipalities have identified various zones where, and also additional regulations in terms of distance from schools, distance from playgrounds, distance from recreation facilities, and also things like blocking storefronts so that people can't see in the store itself. Those types of things. Some of that is covered, I think, in the government has already covered, I think, some of those things. But if the city wanted to, implement a certain zoning for where the cannabis stores can be located, you could do that. Or if you're happy with the, retail locations or retail area, then in the existing zoning, the business zoning, then that can be simple.
Thank you, Amy. I think Councillor Nutta had Nutta?
Wait a minute. Apakudimagawang ituro Quashimagawnato. Solo qua Tukuyu Satine. Nunavut Gavakudimata Tukuyu. Tema Apakudisina Takai. Takumi Kuta Nunavukama Kuningatami Picadillo. Solo over Pesierang na Migata Takanga Enune. Solo Tana Tema of Katokaman. To show Shetty Ite Mailuta Ekamuro to show my own atun, Sakapaden. Tanata Mana Pishimay would solo Takama Sakasimang Ben word ayotigo tema ronga. Te koto mangukai pijutigilui solo takakwate ikrumutai ketemati tau te kanuk semangata. Tana piuna yata temana kwasakapata. Solo pieta pik word pesia semangata. So akuta tuinasata. Taikun nuno gamankuno. Tana pigu yang tiura kayu suyang. Tana tau solo na mayu kiwaro gama takuninga ala bunga isaktunga na ibarak mayu ala pinunginga tiura sila kun na imang man ilinea kanagiya ilinea kanagiya ni solo piyaga tuang ilinea pero mikina raksim yama taimang pinatu udumima ala ilua tipakainatu ai te urak tamana takoyerang na atu ukarak tima wasi te mai lunakai solo mana nomang nangso wasi sakit riwarang atiging itir kamayunak tuna takang takotau ilinerbe lemat sisuro silakut usi te mai lunakai ilisayin anangine isak semutuin ng mata usi nadi muko makinak said anangayak tiluit Begitu nakisuk ukatu gitu pakoro mungkin said ane kata katuro ele
Sorry, point of order.
Okay.
tana asenung kerotunga ukap matunga ukasung maimi suru nanak terjeng mejok tana ukasung mai ilu kau nang mat ajing itu Truklo tusama koyolo ta asenung nak tahu yun asenung ringi kuratunga uangre ipiyang taba sandana asenung nak tahu saniyang matana sungan tana sungan nato uktunga ayo katema ilunay tema kulu taikane ukapikin na natin tamanda ukasarikin na natin.
Well, okay, Councillor Nuttall. I think what we can do is we can ask Jeff if he knows the date for the community consultation, because I know that there has been an ad placed in the papers, and I believe I heard a radio ad as well, or a public service announcement about the community consultation on the cannabis stores in Iqaluit. So, Jeff, do you have the date for that? And then after that, we have Kumulik and Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Natak. Sorry, if I could back it up very quickly. Within this process with the government of Nunavut, there are multiple consultations done by the government of Nunavut. They do have a community consultation. Unfortunately, I don't have the date with me right now, but I could definitely get that date for this group. There's a consultation done with regional Inuit associations, depending on the region that the cannabis store will be opened, and then a consultation with essentially the municipality itself, which is what we are doing right now.
Thank you, Jeff. Akumalek?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is the store Inuit owned?
Yes.
Councillor Stevenson?
I think all I was going to say was that Amy had jogged my memory, and that yes, we need to revisit our planning act, bylaw, general plan, excuse me, that's already 2 years out of date for being redone. But that was where the function for making sure that the cannabis stores were where we wanted them to be, or not where we didn't want them to be, was. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brewster. I would make a recommendation to council to approve this request from the GN for the store.
Are you making a motion?
A recommendation to council.
Do you second? Councillor Shepherd seconds. Any comments, questions? Go ahead, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you. I'd like to propose a friendly amendment as a seconder that it be conditional upon development permit approval. I think that's a big condition at this point in time when it relates to the change in density of usage and the parking situation. So, this council has supported, we asked for a cannabis store by motion. I don't have any issues with the development. I don't feel that, there's big opposition to this development, but that recommendation would be conditional on development permit approval at that point.
I'm fine with that friendly amendment. I'm not sure we're going to need it because they do have a lot of parking in the back side of the property. Currently, it's mostly used for vehicles that are being maintained, but I think they do have quite a bit of parking there, so I don't think it will be needed. But I'm good with that friendly amendment for sure.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd and Mayor Bell. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll call for a vote then. All those in favor? Anyone against? Councillor Nuttall voted no. Motion carried. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to food truck licensing. Another verbal report by Jeff Byrne, our Economic Development Officer. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hello. So as you may be aware, there are 2 food trucks in Iqaluit currently. 2. There was 4 at one point. I think currently on the road we see 2. Sorry, 3. And I'm just looking for a recommendation from council to move forth with a motion to govern locations of food trucks. So I'll discuss that a little bit. Other jurisdictions in Canada for food truck operations are generally done by a licensing or a lottery system in which all food truck owners essentially get their name entered into a lottery for prime locations in their downtown core so that they can operate out of. I'm not sure if we need to incorporate the lottery system here given the number of food trucks. However, I think we should define where a food truck or mobile business should operate, as it's not in the business bylaw currently. Currently in the bylaw, they would be considered a hawker or a peddler, which means a person who goes from house to house or locates on any street, roadway, or elsewhere other than a building which is in his or her permanent place of business and offers the sale of any merchandise to any person or offers to expose a sale to a person by means of samples, patterns, cuts, blueprints, or merchandise. So again, I'm asking to bring forth a motion to council to potentially govern where food truck operations and mobile businesses can take place in Iqaluit. Because again, as of right now, if a food truck wanted to set up shop in a residential area, there's nothing that prohibits them from doing so.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Jeff, has there been issue that's brought this forward? Is there a reason why we're talking about this other than a general concern? Or has one of the food trucks complained or have people complained about their location?
Thank you for the question. There have been no complaints to date in regards to the location of any food trucks. My request was more or less anticipatory. We have had questions around the location of where food trucks can operate. Under the business licensing portal that I manage, working with the planning and development team, they've brought up questions as to where food trucks can operate, and currently there's nothing in the bylaw that distinguishes a food truck any differently than, again, as I mentioned now, as a hawker or a peddler. So it's anticipatory.
Thank you, Jeff. Stevenson is going to follow up, and then we'll have Councillor Kulik.
Thank you. So I guess two questions. One, can you confirm that currently these hawkers and peddlers in their trucks, I had to, yeah. Can you confirm that they do have business licenses? And secondly, I think that two of the three that we were referring to park on private property or park on somebody's leased land, I guess. There's no real private property. The third, and in past summers, more than one has been on QIA Inuit owned land, and then on GN land, school land, like so the Nakusuk parking lot and the QIA lands in front of. I wonder if they even have permission for either of those two locations from the owners.
Thank you. All food trucks that are currently on the road are licensed with us, with the City of Iqaluit. In terms of your second comment, again, one of the things that was brought up or that I had researched about using locations that are not their own private property is the liability insurance that goes along with that. That's one thing that they do not have to provide to me with the business licensing. However, if you're on public property or private property, you should have liability insurance up to $2 million. And again, that's just an estimate based on other jurisdictions I've looked at. In the event that something does happen, and the city would be then liable for it.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Councillor Kulik, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I was going to ask that similar questions because I've always wondered about the food truck that sits by the across the North Mark, and if I can remember correctly, that lot belongs to QC or QIA, and I've always wondered if I always wondered about it. And when the Legion was thriving, they used to have a food truck right across from the Legion in the evening. So I think that's a very valid approach that you are taking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kulik. We'll go with Councillor Shepherd next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm all for creating some regulations. I'd like to see them as unrestrictive as possible. Perhaps, stopping someone from parking in a residential driveway, keep it out of the residential neighborhoods, and require landholder permission, leaseholder permission. They should have to obtain the permission of whoever's land they're occupying. But short of that, I'm not seeing a lot of problems. I'm seeing more net benefit than issues with the service. So I'd like to keep it as unrestricted as possible.
Thank you. I fully agree, and sorry, my wording might have been a little incorrect, but I'm of the same opinion that it should be as least restricted as possible for the businesses. However, we should kind of what I had originally proposed, and again, the zoning would be off, but essentially in a downtown core, not a residential area, that you would be able to operate with permission of the landowner rather than in a residential zone. I think that would be the only place that I would probably prohibit the use of a food truck.
Thank you, Councillor Nuttall, and then Councillor Stevenson.
Mahoney, Kondama, Kayuma Baginep. Takwa, in Nurakring, Ukashokoyurat, Temetim, Tuangai Kuramat. Solo no shit with it. Nakatakburut. Doesn't read there. A can win there. Already, you cannot churro cannot take no no take pingora getting next over. Lakwa no right upakshima yumaying takuna anyone can it you million. They make Kunayataka, then it you know, no Kutanic Europe, City Kutanic Europe, Kanola it, Kanonag it. They make them, because you make Manda over, Ikane, Kijane, the Kagaya to it. Oharota, Atada, singular nation. Manda, because you make Pingy Kirado, Taka, Big of Jotted. Do not take it. Kanu electron, Ekaru Ilone, can it do about the nail? Tomato, Quarto, William.
Thank you, Councillor Nuttall. Councillor Stevenson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess Councillor Nuttuk brings up an interesting point that there might be a separate part of it that was talking about special events and some kind of special event clause for where people could be. And then I was going to say, I guess that our parking bylaw that we just passed not too long ago, or the amendment to that gave us leeway to move people on, stops vehicles from parking on the roadside. So they need to be on somebody's property, which means that property permission would be really important. I guess I'd finish off by saying whatever comes, I'd really like it to be in draft form so we can I'd like to have something in front of me so I could be talking more tangibly about it, and then we could go from there. But I'm in favor of you moving forward with this for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Mayor Bell, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brewster. Are you looking for a motion, recommendation to council to make this happen?
Yes.
Then I'd make that motion.
And Councillor Akumelik seconds. Any questions, comments? And we'll go to vote.
Sorry, may we have clarification on the actual motion?
Mayor Bell? Or Jeff, would you like to give us the wording?
I'm looking to bring forth a motion to council to prepare a draft bylaw for governance of food trucks and their location within the city of Iqaluit.
Go ahead.
How about an amendment to the business license bylaw for provisions for food trucks?
Sorry, yes, that sounds a lot better.
Yeah, so I'll move to recommend to council what he said. Tammy, I see her writing it down, so Tammy's got the actual wording.
Sorry, are you okay with that amendment, Councillor Akumelik?
Yes, I am.
Okay, any more questions or comments? We'll go to vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jeff. We do not have an in-camera set. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mayor Bell.
Just motion to adjourn.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So Mayor Bell moves to adjourn. Councillor Lucasy seconds. All those in favor? Everyone in favor. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you, Andrew.